Hello, all of you. I Can Do Anything podcast listeners. This is your host, Robin Steckel. Today we have Jen Fox on, and she is going to talk to us everything about vending. And I'm very excited to have her on. I will say for our YouTube followers, there's supposed to be an H over here and a Y at the end, and it's supposed to say healthy behind me. But right now it looks like it's Earth. Anyway, welcome to the podcast, Jen.
Thanks. How are you?
I'm
Thanks
good.
for
How are
having
you?
me. I'm great.
So, Jen, tell us everything we need to know about vending and how you started.
Oh gosh. Um, so my father actually started the business in 1962. He went into the army, got his GED in the army. When he got out of the army, he went to work for Aramark, and they're still around today. I'm sure you've heard of them. But he was a route guy for Aramark. He left that job and went to drive a dump truck for a quarry locally in Chicago. And he made more money, but he hated it because he was alone in his truck all day and he's a people person. And so, what he loved about being a vending route driver was that he got to go into offices and meet, all different kinds of people. And so I apparently his nickname to some of his customers was the Candy Man. So it's just like you get to know your customers and you build a relationship. So he decided to go back to that job, and then eventually, while still working at Aramark, I believe, bought a cigarette machine and put it in the corner of a bar on the south side of Chicago. And that's how Fox Vending started. It actually started as AOK Vending because at the time my dad went to incorporate, Fox Vending was already taken. But then I think it was 1975 maybe that he was able to get the Fox Vending name. So we've been in business for, what does that make it, 62 years? And I started 23 years ago in May. So kind of a very random, not planned at all. I'm one of four kids. I have an older sister and two younger brothers. My youngest brother has passed away, but my sister, she's an ergonomical engineer. She was never coming into the vending business. In fact, she's worked for United, Boeing. She, designs cockpits of planes and does all sorts of, she's, very successful. So she lives out west and she was never coming to Chicago. And then my younger brothers were, they were young and just kind of like sowing their oats and enjoying their late teens, early 20s when my dad was getting ready to, just wanting to dial it back and retire. So he approached me, the artist of the family. And I mean, I think out of sheer desperation, was like, are you sure you don't want to come into the business? It's established, it's here. And I had no interest whatsoever. I have no business background or had. But I'm really close with my dad. And I felt very obligated to say yes. So I said, at the time I graduated college. So I went back to school when I was 23 years old and got a degree in graphic design. So when I graduated, I was 26 and I was, I think, still waiting tables and I was freelancing. And I loved that. I lived on my own and I made fine money. And all of the kids that I had graduated college with, they were just like 21. So I had been working. My first job was washing hair in a salon when I was 13. So like I have never not worked since I was 13 years old. So all these kids are getting out of college and getting their first jobs, making like no money, less than 20 grand a year, working crazy hours for art designers who are basically like taking their ideas, right? And I just thought that seems horrible. So I just kept freelancing and waiting tables when my dad had come to approach me about vending. So I had no idea what I was going to do, really. Like I wasn't interested in going to work for a big design firm. That didn't seem very appealing to me. So I was kind of just, going with the flow, I guess, trying to figure it out. So I said to my dad, okay, I'll give you 6 months, no hard feelings if I don't like it, assuming that I would hate it. And I would have given him my 6 months and just moved on. And I mean, here we are. That was 23 years ago. So that was a long-winded answer.
And what type of machines or equipment were you able to start off with? I'm assuming it was much more than a cigarette machine.
Yeah, so we still sold cigarettes when I started 23 years ago. We phased those out pretty quickly. As a matter of fact, today is my 21st anniversary of quitting smoking. So when I started working for my dad, I probably drank between a 6 and a 12 pack of Diet Coke a day. No joke. I smoked 2 packs of Marlboro Lights, and I used to get to work and warm up a Hostess honey bun every single day. That was
Well,
I was the pillar of health. So
well, that's what we did back then. Honestly, I mean, I
I mean,
don't know of any of my friends that didn't do something very similar.
insane. I mean, I very distinctly remember the last honey bun I ever ate. I was standing in the warehouse. I mindlessly flipped the package over, and I think it has something like 58 grams of fat. And I remember just being like, oh my God. And I've never eaten one since. And then I don't drink soda. And like I said, I quit smoking 21 years ago today. So we phased the cigarettes out. I mean, not only do I not want to sell them just on principle, but also, I mean, it's just hard to make money because that's when laws started to change. And, you could no longer put a cigarette machine anywhere. It had to be where somebody was being carded because you have to be old enough to buy them. So that's a night and weekend business in the nightclub. So I can tell you, one too many service calls to me on a Friday or Saturday night having to go into a dance club in downtown Chicago to fix their cigarette machine, like, cured it for me. So we have the traditional vending: soda, snack, coffee, food. And I've been asked countless times over the years, so like, what's new and exciting in vending? And like, well, you're like, it's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig, right? Vending is what it is. But there is actually something new and exciting over the last like decade, and that's a grab and go market concept. So kind of like Amazon Go, but in the lunchroom of like your workspace. So believe it or not, it's honor system. If you had told me 5 years ago or 10 years ago we'd be doing this, I would have told you were crazy. But in the right environment, I mean, there is theft to contend with for sure. But in general, like, the white collar worker does not want to use a vending machine. It's just not a good experience. I can't even tell you the last time I used a vending machine. I'm never in an environment where I would use one, right? But even when you go to a hotel, let's say, they've got that grab and go store in the lobby, like, more and more, and you're seeing less and less vending machines. So while vending machines still have a role in manufacturing and certain environments, the grab and go self checkout market is, I would say, the newest, most exciting thing in our industry. And I love them. I mean, I would place those over vending machines in most any situation.
We used to have that where I worked, and because of COVID and working from home, no longer have that. I believe that there's
Yeah.
one or two machines in the building, but besides that, but we used to have that type of concept. And it was really nice to go grab a sandwich, a bag of chips, and whatever, sparkling water. And then off you went, and you didn't even have to worry about remembering to bring lunch or remembering to bring a
Right.
snack. It was nice. It was relatively healthy food, I would say. It wasn't, besides chips being processed and somewhat junky, but in general, I do feel like the market has turned a little bit more towards health food. And why don't you tell us about your vending company and some of the offerings that you have?
That's very true. So it's been really interesting. It's vending. This career path has been far more interesting than I would have ever thought when I started, just to watch how it's changed and evolved and how people have changed. I mean, COVID did a number on people in a good and a bad way, right? But I really think that it profoundly impacted the way people eat and drink. So I have definitely seen a huge dip in sales in markets where they have any kind of a hybrid work from home. Obviously, I need physical people in an office in order to sell things. So that's been tough. But with the healthy, 20 years ago, what healthy would be tasted like crap, right? Think rice cakes. And also, everybody has a very personal definition to what healthy is to them. So somebody might think baked chips are healthy. And to me, like, my guilty pleasure is chips. I was just talking to somebody about this earlier. I won't sit around and just eat chips for no reason, but I love chips with a sandwich. I just actually, side note, finished listening to a book called Fast Like a Girl because I'm doing this fasting program.
Mhm.
And she was talking about the kind of stuff that they spray on potato chips. And I was like, oh my God. So I bought a mandolin this weekend and I'm going to try making my own. So they're like, better for you. But just, I love a good crunchy potato chip. And so to me, if I flip a package of regular sea salt and vinegar kettle chips around and I flip over a bag of baked Lays, the nutritional information is not that far off to make it worth sacrificing the deliciousness of like real potato chips, right? So, or Nutri-Grain bars. I mean, I don't mean to disparage these particular brands, but just like Nutri-Grain bar 15, 20 years ago, somebody would have felt like they were making a healthy choice. Nature Valley granola, like there are a lot of these things that like aren't actually really healthy. A lot of this crap, I mean, there's so much data now that low fat and all this is really not good for you. It's filled with tons of junk. So I struggle with that a little bit with my job because, I am into health and wellness. As you know, that's how you and I met. And I'm happy that there are things that can be considered healthy or better for you that actually taste good too. So a big role I play in the company is kind of always seeking out those things, those interesting new brands. There's so many brands in the beverage department that are much better choices than soda, especially diet soda. So again, yes, we sell a ton of that. I mean, it's unbelievable how much we sell in energy drinks, like in that category, the Monsters and the Red Bulls of the world. But then you have like the LaCroix, and I mean, there's, vitamin water zero, the smart water, or I mean, there's just so many beverage options. So another great thing about the micro markets is because you're not stuck in a vending machine, you're not stuck with like a certain line of products because of the packaging size. So you can sell anything, right? So in markets is where we really shine in terms of having a huge variety of things to choose from between your traditional peanut M&Ms, Doritos, Fritos, and then like better for you and actual healthy items. I mean, Robin, seriously, we can't give fresh food away out of a vending machine. Even people in my own industry refer to them as like the wheel of death. So even if the food is really good and it's something that you would not think twice about buying in a gas station, like you'd grab that no problem because you can touch it and you can feel it and look at it and flip it over and look at the nutritional information. And there's just this perceived value of grabbing it from a cooler versus a vending machine, right? And as an industry, it's a whole nother topic, but I think we've done a really poor job at elevating like what we do for a living. So we sell tons of food in markets where we can't give it away in vending. It's been fascinating to watch. Like anytime we've done a conversion, for instance, where we've taken an account where we've had vending machines there for a prolonged period of time, and then we've converted it to a micro market. So I'll give you like real live examples in terms of numbers. We had a corporate office in the city, white collar, corporate office of a big construction company. They had vending machines there. It averaged around $6,700 for the entire year, which would be considered terrible. So if you consider that a vending machine should generate at least $100 a week or more in gross sales, then two machines should do 10,400, right? At a minimum. So these machines did around 6,700. They have over 300 people in this office. There's no reason these vending machines shouldn't do better. So when markets became a thing and we dove into that part of our industry, I begged this facilities guy, please let me put a market, but he was super old school, right? And he didn't really understand it. So it took me a couple years to convince him to do it. So we put a market in. So the same amount of people that did not spend more than $7,000 a month, or I mean a year, in their vending machines were spending anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 a month in the market. It blew my mind. And so, I thought it was a fluke. It was like, what am I missing? But then every conversion we've done, especially in downtown Chicago, has been the same thing. It's at minimum doubled what the vending sales were. And in some cases, quadrupled and what have you. It's been bananas. So it just goes to show you that people like you and I, we're used to going to Target, self-checkout, Home Depot, Whole Foods, wherever, airports, like everywhere we're going now, that experience of being able to pick up what we need without having to interact with another person, scan, swipe, and go with, little to no distraction from that process, like that's what we want. I mean, I don't know about you, but my local Target, you can have, there could be 5 lanes open and there will be 7 people in the self checkout line waiting. I don't understand it. I see every single time I go there, this is the scenario. And I'm like, you can just go check out right here. But inevitably, people are waiting in the self checkout line. It's like they just don't want to be bothered. So I think markets are definitely the way. I mean, there are big vending companies in this country that have sold all of their vending and gone all markets, or converted every market or every vending account they've had to a market, because the margins are just better. Like I said earlier, you can sell anything. And one crucial factor is we can pass on the sales tax. So at a self-checkout scenario, sales tax gets added to that transaction. In a vending machine, we can't do that. So in Chicago here, we're paying 10.25% sales tax on soda. I know. So when people complain about pricing, it's like, not only is vending traditionally less expensive than gas stations and convenience stores, not that it should be, mind you, but it is, you are also saving that, whatever your sales tax is, whatever your local sales tax is on beverages and food. So, it's, markets are definitely the way to go, for sure.
Well, first of all, you and I can never be together with a bag of chips because it would be a race to see who would finish a bag of chips quicker.
So
Yeah.
I'm not a chip eater, like just to eat the chips. I have to have it with a sandwich.
Yep.
So I can have chips in my house and I won't even touch them. But if I have, like last night, I made myself a burger, I had chips. There's just something about it. Like I can have a chocolate bar in my fridge and not touch it for a month. Like I don't have a sweet tooth at all, but I cannot have a sandwich or a burger without chips. Like I could never be on a strict diet that meant that I couldn't eat what I wanted. Like there's just no way, which is why I like run and work out and do all the things, right? So I can eat whatever the hell I want, like in moderation.
What so far has been your biggest barrier?
Gosh, probably my dad.
Really?
Yeah. I love my dad dearly. But I can tell you that 23 years, there have been a lot of low points. My dad's 84 years old, right? He's going to be 85 on the 24th of this month. And so he's very old school. I mean, he's a male chauvinist, right? Like I love him to death, but that's like the era he came from. So, I mean, and I'm like a total daddy's girl. So in his mind, like I was going to be barefoot and pregnant. Like I can't tell you the number of times he told me like that I should be, what am I doing? I need to be meeting somebody to get married and have kids. And I did get married once. I divorced. The totality of the relationship was 5 years. I can't say I'd do it again. And I don't have kids. So, I mean, he definitely saw his sons taking over the business. And I genuinely believe that even when I started working for him, I don't know if he'd admit this or not, but I was like a placeholder for when my brothers would eventually come into the business. And then I could be relieved to go be a housewife. I mean, really, like that is what he envisioned. And so, I mean, when I started working for him, I made $10 an hour. And I mean, I did everything from sales to sweeping the warehouse floor. And I didn't really care because I was still freelancing and I didn't think I was going to stay. So like the amount of money I made, I wasn't there to make a career of it. So I was kind of like, whatever. And then I remember when I started there was a gentleman working as the operations manager who was making $1,000 a week. I started on May 15th, and 4th of July weekend, he never came back to work. Like he never returned. He just, no notice, nothing, just never returned to work. And then my dad hired another guy, no vending experience, at like $8.50 a week. Meanwhile, I'm still making $10 an hour. And then the next year, my still living brother, came to work for us making $6.50 a week. And now at this point, so remember, I was making $400 a week. So now I had been raised to $500 a week, and my brother was hired at $6.50 a week. And we graduated college the same year, I might add, because I went back. So I graduated late. Anyway, so it went on like that for quite some time. And my brother came and went. He didn't last. He's kind of cut from the same cloth as my dad. So like working alongside a woman didn't work for him, his young, immature self. My youngest brother did come work with us for a while, and that really was great. He was sober and doing really well, but he died of a heroin overdose in 2018. So when his addiction just got the best of him, like there was, that was a slippery slope that went pretty quick. So I mean, I was just like the lone survivor, but the amount, I mean, it's been a lot of this, with a guy who like doesn't have the appropriate respect for women in business. Now he does. I mean, now my dad is amazing, and now he's so grateful that I'm there. And I think it's been a huge asset that I come from an artist background and not a business background, because like, I mean, when I had a website built for our company, we didn't have there was no web design when I was in college. So I'm aging myself. I'll be 50 next month. But I mean, I certainly like being around the design world. Like I knew that was where we were going. And I remember him saying to me, like, why are you spending money on having a website built? That's insane. And when I had email, I mean, I cannot tell you the amount of times he would say, why are you emailing people? Like, you need to go see them in person. And I would just look at him and go, Dad, if I call a customer and they respond to me with an email, they're communicating how they want to communicate, right? If they wanted to talk on the phone, they would call me back. Anyway, so it was a lot of that, like old school, new school thinking, and a lot of having to break a lot of like culture that was very toxic, like very bad, not a positive culture there at all. And I'm still like, something that I'm really focused on now, is because my dad's still around, and I'm so happy about that. And he comes in every day. Right now he's out of town, but he comes in every day when he's in town, every day. Now he strolls in at like noonish, sometimes 1. He opens the mail. That's his big job. And that's what he does. Like, he doesn't have a sign into our Venn management software. He has no idea what we do. He couldn't run the business today. He admits that. But I'm glad, like, it gives him somewhere to go. It gives him a reason to get up, get out of bed, shave, get dressed. And because, watching him age, I mean, it's been like a both beautiful and painful experience seeing him get older, and spending every day with your dad. Like, we have just a really special bond. So still coming in though, there's still things like he'll try and sneak in with his old way, and I'll have to like come around the back door and say to an employee, like, stop listening to him. Whatever he tells you to do, you come talk to me, and then I will tell you if you should do that or if you shouldn't. You know what I mean? So I'll give you the perfect example because it just happened. So we have a Prius that we used for service for like a field tech, and it's shot. The engine is shot, and so it's not worth being rebuilt. I mean, it's the car is junk. Okay, so I tasked the person that deals with our fleet. I said, hey, would you get rid of that Prius? Like, find somebody to buy it for parts or whatever. Just get it off the property. We're in like a big purging phase because for 23 years, I have been like fighting with my dad about getting rid of old shit in our warehouse that's never going to see the light of day again. And he's a total hoarder, and I am literally the complete opposite. So he's out of town right now. And I said to Bob, hey, what's going on with the Prius? And he said, oh, your dad said not to sell the Prius and not to sell the van. He wants to put a new transmission in the van. And I was just like,
aren't you the president though?
Yeah. I said, how many miles are on the Prius? About 230,000. Okay. How many miles are on the van? Over 300,000. I said, okay. I said, listen, this is the employee. I said, listen to me. Stop going and talking to my dad about things we're doing here. And no matter what, if he tells you something, you come back to me and tell me what he told you. I will fight the fight with him. You don't have to fight with him. I will. but we're not doing what he says. He makes bad decisions because he's 84 and everything represents money to him, right? So I called 2 Toyota dealers local, and then I called one of my points of contact at a Dodge dealer that, is our client. And I talked to the 2 Toyota dealers first. They both told me it's worth less than $500. My contact, Joe, he's like, no, it's worth nothing, Joe. Like, I trust him, right? I know him, I trust him. Well, our employee, Bob, found somebody to give us $1,300 for this Prius, and they're going to tow it off the lot. So I thought, I'm not even going to call my dad and have a conversation. I just shot him a text. FYI, the Prius will not be here when you get back. And we are not putting a transmission into a van with over 300,000 miles under any circumstances. So we can fight about this when you get back. So it's like that kind of stuff still, sometimes it's like banging your head against the wall. A daily gratitude practice, which really has changed my life. And I think one of the ways is this, like always reminding myself to be super grateful for the opportunity that was given. I mean, really, like, it's hard to feel accomplished when a company was handed to you. Do you know what I mean? My dad deserves all the credit in the world. We have no debt. He doesn't believe in debt. We don't owe anybody any money. So while it's hard to grow a business that way, we survived COVID really well. And I mean, not without the government assistance of like the employee retention credits and all that. I mean, it would have been impossible. But to not have that hovering over our head, not owing anybody money was huge. So I'm grateful for my career, but I will always feel like, this very successful intact company was basically handed to me. And I suppose I've been successful in not ruining it.
I was going to say, I think you're very successful for all of the modernization. I have a couple of questions. I really thought that you were going to tell me that some of your barriers were with the old school people who approved or denied you coming in with vending or with market. I thought maybe that would be, as a woman-owned business or a woman president, that might be some of your barriers.
I know, it's hard to accept and recognize that it really has been to deal with it before I even left the door, right? I was dealing with it within my own world, my own family, with my own dad. I'm not going to tell you that I didn't deal with that. And I don't still deal with it out in the world, right? I have a bit of a unique personality. I don't know where this comes from, but I don't really care what people think. And I don't have a chip on my shoulder about being a woman in a male dominated industry. And I also grew up in it. So I'll tell you a story. This happened, I'm going to say 5 years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago. The Sweet and Snack Expo comes to Chicago every year. And I had never gone to it, but I get free tickets to it all the time. We have our own trade show that I go to. But I had promoted somebody who was managing our micro markets. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to get you a badge and we'll go together because I want you to experience a trade show. I've never been to this one. I don't know what to expect. I assume it's similar to the trade show that I go to. And the trade show that for in my industry, the NAMA show, it's expensive. It's expensive to bring employees, especially when you have to travel. It's like thousands of dollars. And I mean, this job has been wonderful and it afforded me a very nice life as a child, but the margins are very slim. So I'm very mindful of how we spend money. So I brought him to this trade show. And when we were walking in, I'm like, okay, listen, this is how I normally approach a trade show. You do it however you want. I'm just going to let you do it, right? I'm going to walk with you, but I want you to experience it through your own eyes. I don't want to tell you what you should see and not see. So if you have any questions, let me know. So I walked along with him. Now, my badge said Jennifer Fox, President, Fox Vending, right? And his badge said Tommy Flam, Market Manager, Fox Vending. But after we walked down one aisle, up, down, we were at the end cap the fourth aisle. And I had not been acknowledged a single time by anyone. And I had never, it was so appallingly obvious. We get to the end cap and he's talking to this guy, and this guy manufactures, single serve popcorn, like different flavored popcorns. And so he's talking to Tommy, and I'm standing there, and he goes, "Oh, hang on." And he goes and gets earbuds. Him this free giveaway of earbuds. Doesn't even acknowledge that I'm standing there. And so I, at this point, like, am boiling up to here. And I am not an I am woman, hear me roar kind of person. That's just not my personality. And I said, "What am I, chopped liver?" Look down at my badge, and he all of a sudden, like, scrambled, like, "Oh, hold on, I'm so sorry." And I go, "Save them. I've got the real ones anyway," because they weren't Apple earbuds; they were generic. And I looked at him and I said, "But let that be a lesson to you, because I can promise you that we will never buy your popcorn." And we just kept walking, right? And he was speechless. And my employee looked at me and he goes, "I'm so glad you said something, because I was getting really uncomfortable thinking, is this what you deal with every time you go to a trade show?" And I really had an aha light bulb moment for all of the women in my industry that do deal with that. Because I said, no, of course not. But it had never dawned on me that everybody knew me. Like, I started in this industry and everybody knew me as Jimmy Fox's daughter. So I had a built-in degree of respect. Whether it was authentic or not is irrelevant. Like, I never got treated that way. And I knew everyone. Like, I walk into a trade show, my trade show, and I don't get past the front of the trade show without running into 20 people I know. You know what I mean? So I had never experienced that before. And it was just shocking to me. I thought, oh my gosh, is this what women deal with? Because I had really never experienced that. So I think partly it's due to the fact that, like, I've always been in a co-ed education situation. Like, my grammar school was co-ed. I went to a co-ed college prep in downtown Chicago, which was very diverse. And then obviously college was. So I don't know, like, most of my really close friends have been men my whole life. I'm very comfortable around that. I have some of my best friends in the industry are men, because there aren't a lot of women in leadership roles. So I guess it's probably happened more than I've noticed, because it just goes over my head. Do you know what I mean? Because I
Yes.
feel very comfortable.
Yeah, I completely understand what you mean.
Yeah.
So tell us about
what real quick. I will say, because I have a strong personality, that I actually have had more issues with women than I have with men. Because I've just found, like, strong women there. Let me just put it this way. When I walk out of a sales call, I 1000% know immediately if we have a chance or not. And I can tell when somebody doesn't like me, right? And so, like, one of the things I say when I talk to people on the phone, because a lot of times people will want you to send a proposal via email without ever meeting. And I always say to people, I don't do that as a practice, because I'm a big believer in liking who you work with. And if we meet and you don't like me, it will not matter what I put in a proposal. So if you're shopping just on price, you're never going to choose us anyway, because we're one of the most expensive vendors in the market, but we're also one of the best, and you get what you pay for, right? So I'm like, I can go into a call and know when a woman doesn't like me, like, she doesn't like my strong personality. And it's typically 9 times out of 10 a woman that I get, like, an aggressive tone feel from. I always get a kick out of it. It's like, I don't take it personal, right? I leave and I'm like, whatever, it's fine.
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We work so hard to take good care of our customers. We guarantee, technical service within 24 hours of a service call coming in. I would say, over service customers rather under. You should never have to call and say your vending machine is empty or your market needs service. And are we perfect? No, but we strive to be as close to, progress, not perfection. We strive to be the best we can be every day. And so I only want to work with people that appreciate that and know what they're getting is something that they're not going to get from the vending company down the street. There just aren't that many independently owned vending companies to choose from anymore. The big guys have gobbled all of them up. So honestly, there's really us and one other company in the Chicagoland area locally that are family owned and operated. And their dad started a year before my dad, and our dads were friends, and their dad actually helped my dad get in the business. So we're very friendly competitors. But other than that, like it's either a really small vending company or no one at all, or you've got Sodexo, Canteen, and Aramark. So those big companies, they operate in a whole different way. They just could never, no matter how badly they wanted to or tried, they could never provide the level of service in terms of hands-on that we do, that a family-owned company does, because there's so much thought. It's like that movie You've Got Mail, where they say don't take it personal. I love that movie, especially Fox, but Fox. But when Meg Ryan's like, when Tom Hanks said it's not personal, and she's like, it is personal. It's my business. And so when people have said that to me, I'm like, every truck that leaves this building every day has my last name on it. That's personal. It's personal. It means something to me. I care about my customers. I invited some of them to my wedding. Like it's really personal. And that gives me a lot of personal pride. It's literally what made me stay with vending when I thought I'd give my dad 6 months and leave, is the personal pride that I discovered doing something for yourself. It was unbelievable. It was like a drug. And so I knew like, oh, this is it. And this is going to provide me the opportunity to have a really nice life. And it has. And I can't like tell you how grateful I've been for the opportunity that was just, that I can't say, I was born into the right family. And I suppose the opportunity was presented to everybody in my family and I took it and ran with it. So I was just named one of the 25 most influential women in the convenient services. And, it's an industry award that was made up. And I found it really hard to let myself be proud of that, but it is like after 23 years, I've endured a lot, and both professionally and personally. And I'm really proud of, how far I've come with having no education in business and no experience, and really being scrappy and learning from the ground up. So
congratulations.
Really, thank you.
What is up and coming for Fox Vending?
It's just what's next is just continuing to do what we've been doing. Being able to carry on the legacy of the company, being second generation, and like I said, not running it into the ground. That's a privilege and a gift. And there's not a lot of other, like we have these new AI technology-based cameras for our markets that have been really amazing. So that's kind of something new we're dipping our toe in. But other than that, there's not a lot of new and exciting stuff. Do you know what I mean? So really maintaining what we've got, growing it, perfecting, getting better where we need to improve. There's a lot of like little efficiencies that you couldn't put into place, like dynamic scheduling. So using the VMS to schedule service of machines so that you're not over servicing. So then that brings the profitability up. All of that kind of like minutia stuff in terms of running a business, but really you can apply that to any business. It doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, the goal is to be profitable, right? Like you want to make money. And so it's how can we do that? How can we be the most efficient so that we can conserve our resources and then put money back into the business, like buying a new service vehicle instead of spending money on a transmission for a van with 300,000 miles. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Switching gears, tell us about your coffee company that you have.
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, my youngest brother died of a heroin overdose in 2018, December 5th. And, I have like a way of like summing up like this 5-year period of my life that is jarring, but it also is just like, will help you understand how this all came to be. So in 2013, I actually found my mom overdosing on heroin. That's a whole nother story for a different day. In 2014, I got married, and that relationship was very tumultuous and emotionally and verbally abusive. In 2015, I miscarried twice, back to back. In 2016, my mom died of lung cancer. In 2017, I filed for separation in January. No, sorry, scratch that. In April. In January of 2018, I filed for divorce. in October of 18, I had a full hysterectomy because I had fibroid issues. And so that, killed my dream of ever having kids. Although, I mean, I basically put it to rest by then anyway. But, as a woman, like there's a lot of finality to that. So in October, I had a full hysterectomy. In November, my divorce was final. And on December 5th, my brother died. So to say that 2019 was like an epic pity party in my life would be a gross understatement. I was pretty much like, drinking like a raging alcoholic, drowning in grief and depression. And I'd always wanted to be a runner. So sometime in May, I bought a Peloton treadmill, drunk one night. I promise this story gets to the coffee. And I woke up to the confirmation email, kind of like, okay, I guess I'm going to be a runner now because I just bought a $5,000 treadmill. I did do the 0% financing monthly payment. So like I was coherent enough to like make that good decision, and I could have returned it, right? I could have canceled the order and been done with it. But there was something about when I would see people running outside that just signified self-discipline, health and wellness, fit, like all of these things that I really dreamt about being myself, that I wasn't at all. And so towards the end of the year, I'd gotten up to like 170 pounds. And in a very unhealthy way. So like, I'm not, not weight shaming, but like it was an unhealthy 40-pound weight gain in a very short period of time. And I had not sent out the thank you cards for Justin's, like in the Catholic tradition, you send out thank you cards after a wake, and they were still behind my desk. So it was right before Thanksgiving. I saw them sitting there. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. And I kept seeing this Live a Great Story campaign show up in my social media feed. And so I thought, that's what I'll do. I'm going to write a thank you letter to everyone who showed up in the last year. I'll include a Live a Great Story sticker in the letter. I'll ask everyone to show me where they put their sticker, and I'll implore them to live a great story because Justin never got his chance. And so I did that, and I started getting all of these, emails, texts from people with pictures of where they put their sticker, telling me how much I inspired them. And then, of course, I had like this moment at the beginning of December, like, oh my gosh, I'm such a fraud, like here I am, I'm inspiring all of these people to live a great story, and I'm living the worst story ever. So I decided in that moment that I was going to, that was actually, so I had already started running, right? I signed up for the Turkey Trot that year, November of 2019. And I signed up for a New Year's Eve run in Chicago, which was very cold. But then I committed to running a 5K every single month for the year of 2020 until I could do that without stopping to walk, because I literally couldn't run a single mile without feeling like I would die. So, and then I also decided that I was going to give up booze for all of 2020. So I normally was doing dry January, and I was just like, dry January is not going to cut it after this past year. So I very distinctly remember a friend of mine sitting right where I am at my kitchen island right now, saying to me, "You're not going to actually tell people you're quitting drinking for the whole year, are you?" And I remember like I was standing right across the island, and I remember thinking, I don't know, I hadn't thought about it either way. Why? And he's like, "Well, aren't you afraid that people are going to think you have a problem?" And I like laughed, literally went like, I drink 2 bottles of wine every day. I like sometimes more. That's a problem on anyone's measure. I don't really care what people think of me, right? Like it had never dawned on me that people would judge me. Like I just knew this is not healthy or sustainable, and this is not who I want to be. So I was like off and running, no pun intended, in 2020 when COVID hit. And I cannot tell you the number of times somebody said to me, "You picked a real bad year to quit drinking." I knew early on in 2020, I had come in contact with somebody online, this guy named Glenn Harrington. He had like shared his story in this running motivation group. And I wanted to share his story in like this Try 2020 challenge group I had created. And he turned me on to Herren Project. And Herren Project is a nonprofit substance use disorder organization that helps people who need treatment. And so I started fundraising for them. So like all of my running, I was fundraising for them, and I started running on Team Herren Project. And I knew, so I still had this Live a Great Story thing out there, right? The sticker. I had reached out to them through their website, thinking it was like a company. And the guy wrote back to me, and he's just like a one-man band that had started this company in Austin, Texas. So it was when things started to get real strange in March before the shutdown. I was supposed to run the Shamrock Shuffle here in Chicago. It got canceled. And I found an in-person local 5K in Austin, Texas. And my cousin also lives there. So I FaceTime this kid, Zach, and I say kid because he was a kid in my mind at the time. Bless his heart, we're good friends now. But we were FaceTiming, and here I'm like this old hat, this old woman. And I'm like, so listen, I like have this like bubbling over enthusiasm to him on FaceTime. And I'm like, so if I find an in-person race in Austin, will you meet with me in person? I have an idea. And he was just kind of like, okay. And so I found an in-person 5K. I met with him in person, and I was off and running from then because I had met with my coffee roasters downstate like a couple weeks prior. And in talking with them about the drinking challenge and the running and all the things, he said, maybe we can do something with this rebranding of your coffee packaging, which is like the Fox Roasters is our private label. Maybe we can do something with Herren Project and Live a Great Story. And maybe you can like put a sticker in every case of coffee. I'm like, that's a great idea, right? So how can I marry the storytelling part of it with a raising money component so I can have a perpetual way to give back to Herren Project without having to fundraise, like without having to ask people I know for money. And I was in all of these sobriety communities, leading up to 2020, knowing how I was living wasn't healthy. And mind you, I was so miserable the years leading up to 2019 that like my drinking had been very unhealthy prior to Justin dying. So it's not like I went from like healthy drinker to unhealthy. I know lots of people that could probably stand to do a deep dive into the relationship with alcohol. And I think that they don't because they don't want to call themselves an alcoholic. They don't want the label, so they do nothing. So I thought, I want to create the storytelling community where people can come to read powerful stories of people in recovery that look just like them. Because, we have this stigma of like an addict is like some junkie on the corner outside, curled up in a ball with a paper bag and an empty bottle of booze. Like, that is not it. The common day addict today is in, 10,000 square foot houses a block away from me right now, So that was part of it. And then I thought, how can I generate revenue to give back to Herren Project in Justin's name? And I thought, well, coffee, that's what I sell for a living anyway. And so we have a roaster that we work with for another client. It's a boutique roaster in downtown Chicago. And I approached them. And so they roast our coffee for us. And we have 2 blends, and the name is very special to me. It's called Dragonolia. The dragonfly was my brother's. I'll show you that. Let's see. I have it on my water. There's the logo, if you can see it.
Yeah,
But,
I can.
The dragonfly was like my brother's spirit animal. And I actually never knew that until the day we buried him. And I overheard his girlfriend telling my cousin Mandy that he had a dragonfly tattoo on his leg, which I never saw. So I have one on my ankle now, but so the dragon part of the Dragonolia name is for him. And then the Nolia is actually for my mom. We had a magnolia tree in my backyard growing up, which I love. It's beautiful. It's like my favorite tree. And so after I moved out of the house when I was 19, she would always call me to let me know when it was in bloom so I could come home and see it, because it blooms at a time of year here that's very windy. So they often don't last very long. So, because my mom was an addict, we had a very tumultuous relationship, especially as I got older. And those memories are really beautiful memories for me of coming over to my childhood home and sitting by the pool underneath the magnolia tree with her, and either having a cup of coffee or like having a beer and a smoke and, and just talking. And those are really positive memories because, as I told you earlier, like things got really dark with my mom after she got swept up in the opioid epidemic after blowing her knee out, and she got hooked on pain pills, and it was just really rapidly downhill from there. And so Dragonolia is in honor of my mom and my brother, who both struggled terribly with addiction. And, I say in my story on Dragonolia that I wrote, or it's either in my story or my mom's or my brother's, that, my mom died of lung cancer, but addiction took her long before that. And so the name is a nod to them. And we sell premium coffee, 1 pound bags of coffee, ground or whole bean, and $1 from every bag sold goes to Herren Project in Justin's name. And the goal ideally is to, get this out there as much as possible so that we can afford to send somebody to treatment at least once a year. I mean, that would be so amazing to me. I could get choked up. It was very painful to watch my brother, because he was a one-of-a-kind guy. And I think I'm a good salesperson. Oh my gosh. I mean, I wish he had stayed at Fox Vending. Like, we could have been a dynamic duo, because he just was an amazing person. He had such energy. And if you go to the Dragonolia website to his story, there's a video that, instead of just a static picture, it's a video of him. And I took that the August of 2018, the year that he died. And it just perfectly like encapsulates who he was as a human being. And it's just such a shame. It's just such a shame that addiction, he wanted to be sober so badly. And the reason I got choked up is because I remember this time we were on the phone and he was mad at me because I was late picking him up, and he screamed at me, "Do you think I want to be like this? Do you honestly think I want to need my older sister to pick me up?" And the pain in his voice, I could hear it right now, So to be able to make his death not be in vain, and to be able to help somebody just like him, it's like it's given my path a purpose, and it's really helped me heal from how painful it's been to lose him. Because there's a really interesting like meme out there. It's like, I forget that it's like basically the pain button, and it's like the pain never shrinks, you just grow bigger around it. So it's like the picture is like when the person dies, the box is like this and the pain button's like this. And so you're constantly hitting that pain button. But then as you grow, you hit it less often. But when you hit it, it hurts just as bad as like that first month. And I was like catatonic after he died. So this has really helped me put a positive spin on losing him. This is very hard to say, like, there's meaning in everything, I love that saying, but I flipped it because of Rachel Hollis to say you can find meaning in everything that happens to you. Because I refuse to believe that, like, that Justin had to die the way he did. But being able to give back in his name and know that maybe somebody's life can be saved because his was taken too soon. I think he'd be proud, and I think he'd be super grateful that, he has a daughter. She just turned 20. And I think he'd be really grateful that he's never going to be forgotten, and that there's something really interesting that happens when somebody very close to you dies. You tend to only remember the good stuff. And so that's been probably the most eye-opening, fascinating thing about losing my mom and then my brother 2 years later, is that there was a lot of bad, a lot of dark. If you've dealt with addiction, or if you know anybody that has, that like it comes with a lot of pain and darkness. It's actually the tagline of Dragonolia is finding beauty in the darkness, because it's there and you have to do the work to find it. And so it's been a really pleasant surprise and a relief that since they've been gone, I really remember the good over everything else. And it's really hard to conjure up bad memories. And it's easy to swat them away, when they pop up into my mind. So that's the coffee company. And I did start it separately from Fox Vending so that it's something I can do forever. I would never, that's not for sale. So if Fox Vending were ever to sell, Dragonolia would come with me. And so, because it's something I'm really proud of, and our community is growing. We're at almost 4,000 followers on Instagram. And I don't have a lot of money to pour into it, right? So I do have designers that do the work. I did buy a MacBook Pro this past weekend, which is so exciting, because I'm going to tickle that designer in me again so that I can contribute more to the Dragonolia site to try and like drive more traffic to it organically. Because the one thing I have promised, myself, my brother, and just the community at large is that anything that happens with Dragonolia will be authentic, like, and organic. I'm not like buying followers or anything. So it's been, thank you for asking, because it's these things like these that people will listen to learn about it. And it's probably the thing that I'm most proud of in my whole life, is creating a place where people can go and share their stories who are recovering out loud, and people can go and find themselves in the stories there. And the stories have just been amazing. We're actually starting to kind of expand these stories of recovery to be more than just drugs and alcohol. So I have a friend that I met through business, actually, probably 22 years ago, and he is actually in recovery from addiction to porn. And he wrote a book with his son called Tender Lions, and he's sharing his story with our community. And then Arwen Becker, 20. So she and I just chatted, and, she no longer drinks. She had quit alcohol originally to train for 29 or 29, and then decided that life was so much better without it. So she's going to share her story. So I really want it to be a community of people where to really break this stigma of having to label yourself an alcoholic. Like, listen, there are definitely people that are, right? And there's zero shame in that word. And let me rephrase, there should be zero shame in that word. Unfortunately, there just is. And so I really want to create a community of people that are talking about the reasons why they don't do X, and have it be for reasons other than, I hit rock bottom and my 6th DUI. I don't, yes, there are those stories there, but I have to tell you, what I found in following these communities myself is I could never hear myself in the stories, because I didn't hit that proverbial rock bottom. I hit my own personal rock bottom for sure. But the stories that I was reading, I never saw myself in these stories, right? Looking back now that I'm out of that phase, my life was unmanageable, but it wasn't just drinking. It was the whole culmination of being in a toxic marriage, having a mom and a brother who were both using hard drugs. Trying to run a business. It was just being second mom to my niece. It was just a really dark time in my life.
And people can purchase your coffee from anywhere in the United States.
Yeah. So you can you can go to our website, which is dragonolia.com. So it's DRAGON, and then so dragon, like the word, and then OLIA. So I'm sorry. Yeah. OLIA. A little interesting. So Nolia, if I ever had a daughter, I was going to name her Nolia after the Magnolia tree. And I never told anybody that, because this is so stupid, but I never told anybody that because I'm I don't want anybody to steal my idea. But I was going to name her Nolia, Nolia. So the Dragonolia name has a lot of special meaning. But yeah, so you can buy it at the store. You can sign up. We're about to launch a new site actually next week, which is new and improved. I'm super excited about it. And you're going to be able to sign up for subscriptions. So, if you'd like coffee, coffee is a hard business, right? Because everyone has their love of whatever, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever it is. You're married, Folgers, it's terrible coffee. But and people have habits. So you're used to buying it at your grocery store. So it's, the ramp up of sales has been slow, but I would love to get the subscription business going, because I think then, I love that for my own self, for certain things that I consume, like AG1, for instance. These things just arrive when I need them. I don't have to remember to buy them anymore. I think that will really help when people can sign up for a subscription, and, you can do it at different intervals. I just got it not too long ago. I got a 100-bag order, which was amazing. So somebody bought 100 bags for some charity event that they were doing, and they put it in their gift bag. I'm working together with her, with Brooke, for the Sisu Circle. Am I pronouncing that right? So coffee will go in those swag bags. So, I've given a lot of it away, which I'm happy to do, because literally the coffee is delicious. So, and I know I'm biased, but I drink it every day at home. I have a cup of coffee in the morning. And I just started this fasting program. So I normally put cream in my coffee, and obviously with fasting, you can't do that. And so last Monday it started. And so I was drinking coffee black in the morning, and I'm like, damn, my coffee is delicious. I don't even need cream in this. And so I literally stopped, like on days I'm not fasting, I'm not putting cream in my coffee anymore because it tastes so good that it doesn't need it. And I never even thought to do that. Like I don't put sugar in the coffee anyway. So it is very good. You know, and it's priced along the line of any premium whole bean ground coffee you would find in like Whole Foods. And it's a good cause. You know, $1 goes back to a really good cause. And Herren Project is an amazing organization. I don't know if you know anything about it, but Chris Herren was an NBA basketball player. He actually played for the Celtics. He's from Massachusetts. He's from Boston. And opioid addiction derailed his career. I mean, it's like you can watch his documentary, oh my gosh, the first day, I think is the name of it. It's really good. But he talks about how he would be like getting pills from his dealer at what's it called? Boston, what's their Square Garden or whatever? Their basketball stadium. He'd be getting drugs from his dealer outside of the stadium, like right before a game was starting.
Madison Square Garden.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's not New York.
I don't know where it is.
Well, whatever. You understand. This is where the Celtics play. But I mean, his story is crazy. And he actually is celebrating 15 years of sobriety this year. And I think August was his anniversary. But they are AA based, but they're so amazing. The energy they have is amazing. They recover out loud. They just, they really strip away all those stereotypes that you think of when you think of AA, like, meetings in a dark church basement with shitty coffee and smoking cigarettes outside, like that's what conjures up in my mind when I think of like old school AA. And they're not, they're like out there running. They've got bibs for, the New York Marathon, the Berlin Marathon, the London Marathon, like, they're out there and they're doing it out loud. And I just love supporting a community like that. And I just, they help people find treatment. So Chris runs Herren Wellness, which is the for-profit arm of his business. So he has his own treatment facilities, 2 of them, I believe. Herren Project is the nonprofit that helps people get into treatment all over the country. So they work with people and within their means. And so like this scholarship, this Justin Fox scholarship will really be able to help people. They'll really be able to help someone that wants treatment and that cannot afford it. And treatment is insanely expensive. And a lot of it is a scam. I mean, that's a whole other conversation with a lot of these like treatment facilities and halfway houses. They're like literally in bed together, kind of like churning addicts, like through the 28 days, then into the halfway house, then get them hooked back up, send them back to rehab. And it's like money on the state. It's crazy. It is bananas. So you can trust that, the people at Herren Project, you're in good hands and they're going to send you to a reputable place that's really going to help you. I cannot tell you like just how much, like how overwhelmed with pride I feel. And, I talk to Justin all the time and I really think that he would be super proud, that he is super proud. And I only hope, because my mom did live with so much shame and she really resented that I talked about this kind of stuff out loud. I really hope that she's proud of me too,
I'm sure she is.
And now that I'm on this side of it and I've done a lot of the work, I would have been a very different daughter and sister to my mom and brother when they were alive. I should have done a lot more Al-Anon while they were alive to have been nicer to them and understood more that it was a disease and not taken stuff so personally. You know what I mean? I would have had better coping skills. But so that's it. That's the story of our coffee.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of your time today.
Thank you.
And to all of our listeners, stay awesome and keep reaching for your anything.